we're going to cover the top 10 air coolers based on temperature, noise profile, and installation difficulty. We weight these metrics at 65% for temperature, 30% for noise, and 5% for installation difficulty. Additional details behind these coolers can be found on my other videos, as well as my website, pcanalytics.com. With that in mind, we're going to show two sets of graphs for each cooler, the first being normalized by percent speeds, and the second being normalized by sound. Before we get started, we will first orient you to these graphs. Starting with the graph normalized by percent speeds, the left side shows temperatures represented by the solid lines, while the right side shows noise levels represented by the dashed lines. Next, the second graph, normalized by sound, shows temperatures on the side, while the bottom shows noise levels. As a general rule, lower is always better for both of these graphs. With that in mind, let's get started. At number 10, we have the DeepCool AK500 Plus. This cooler has above average cooling and is easy to install. However, this cooler has below average noise profile given the dual fan setup. This cooler does feature RGB lighting, but the lighting is more of a slight accent rather than a major source of RGB lighting. At number 9, we have the Noctua NH-D12L. This cooler has average cooling capabilities, but stands out due to the superior noise level profile with an easy installation. This cooler is ideal where noise is a major concern. Additionally, cooling could be beefed up on this cooler with 2 additional fans if needed. This cooler only comes in the traditional Noctua colors. At number 8, we have the Noctua NH-U12A. This cooler has above average cooling and is easy to install. However, it does have an average noise profile, which is impressive given its dual 120mm fan setup. Given the small footprint of this cooler, it's great for setups where space is a concern. This cooler comes in all black and the traditional Noctua colors. At number 7, we have the DeepCool AK500. This cooler has above average cooling, noise profile, with one of the easiest installation setups, making the AK500 a well-rounded cooler. Given its relative small footprint, this cooler will fit most setups, and may be a good fit if a larger cooler is not ideal for your needs. At number 6, we have the DeepCool AK620. This cooler has one of the best cooling abilities, while also being easy to install. However, this cooler is also one of the louder coolers. The AK620 is also seen as a good alternative to some of the beefier premium coolers if sound is not a concern, but cooling performance is. Additionally, it's important to consider that this cooler may have RAM clearance issues due to the outer fan, but this can be mitigated by raising the fan slightly on the cooler. At number 5, we have the DeepCool Assassin III cooler. This cooler has a larger footprint, but has one of the best cooling performances. However, this comes at the cost at much higher noise levels, with an average installation difficulty. Additionally, it's important to consider that this cooler may have RAM clearance issues due to the outer fan, but this can be mitigated by raising the fan slightly on the cooler. At number 4, we have the Noctua NH-C14S. This cooler has one of the best cooling performances. However, it comes at the cost at being one of the louder coolers in the top list. Unlike most other coolers, this cooler's radiator is parallel to the CPU, giving it a unique look and may be ideal where height is a concern, but where superior cooling performance is needed. At number 3, we have the Be Quiet Dark Rock Pro 4. This cooler has one of the best noise profiles with above average cooling performance. However, this cooler is plagued with a difficult installation design driven in part by the top plate interfering with the installation, the mounting setup, as well as the fan bracket, which can be difficult to place given its design. At number 2, we have the Noctua NH-D15. This cooler gets its high rank due to a combination of factors, such as having one of the best cooling performances, relatively easy installation, and a relatively moderate noise level when compared to other coolers. However, this cooler is also very large and can be tricky to place in certain cases. Additionally, it's important to consider that this cooler may have RAM clearance issues due to the outer fan, but this can be mitigated by raising the fan slightly on the cooler. This cooler comes in all black and traditional Noctua colors. At number 1, we have the Noctua NH-U14S. This cooler only has a single large radiator and uses the same fan as the Noctua NH-D15. Although this cooler isn't the top cooler for either cooling or noise, it does materially better than most coolers on both of these areas. However, for this reason, it is a more well-rounded cooler than most. The NH-U14S only comes in the traditional Noctua colors. If you're thinking about getting one of the top coolers, you should check out this video to get more details about it. You might be surprised on the relative differences between the two.